Hello, welcome to Monday Morning Murder Meal. Hopefully, everybody is doing well. I'm recording this on Sunday in LaSalle, Illinois, while I'm doing a reset. And also, this will come out on my birthday. So excited about that. I'm turning 21. Yeah, right. 30 years ago, I was 21. But yeah, tomorrow, November 15th, will be my 51st birthday. So I'm kind of excited, I guess. I don't know. 51. I just peeked over the hill of 50, halfway there. But anyhow, this is what I do every Monday. Normally, I go for Texas, and I decide I'm gonna expand my horizons instead of just Texas. I'm gonna start doing the state that I'm currently in. So right now, I'm currently in Illinois, so I'm gonna do somebody from Illinois. But like my wife suggested, she said not all places have death penalty, and a lot of them don't. So if I'm in a state, that state, I won't be able to do it. So I'll always refer back to Chicago. But if you haven't, if you this is your first time listening, let me talk. If this is the first time listening to this episode, the show, let me tell you about this show. What I do is I talk about a death row inmate that was executed, their last meal, and their final statement. Not to be confused with my truck stop murder, which is I talk about truck stops and the murder happened around it. It's all on the same platform. I'm waiting to get some Patreons or serve some help because I don't want to pay for separate, hosting platforms because so it's just going to be on one. You get to listen to it all. Which my next full episode will be exciting one. I'm surprised. This one of them cases where I'm surprised nobody covered it. Not some YouTube people covered it, and a few podcasts, independent ones like myself have covered it. But if you want to find that out, you'll just have to listen. I'm gonna record that right when I'm done with this. But without further ado, and always, before I forget, always rate, review. And if you listen to this and you like, I want to do something for your birthday, tell you what, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Truck Stop Murder, which this was be on too, or rate, review me on iTunes or anywhere you do it and share it with a friend. But here you go. Let's go with our three scumbags. And this individual, everybody knows this scumbag. I do not plan on doing a full episode ever on him. Not that the case is interesting, but there is nothing I could say that a million people hasn't already said. So, with better recording equipment and quality and more resources than I have, I'm just a dumb truck driver. Thought I'd try to podcast. But anyhow, we're talking about John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown serial killer. So let's do a little story about what he did. You already know what he did, but let me tell you for the people who don't know, which if you're in true crime, you know who John Wayne Gacy is. But John Wayne Gacy was an American serial killer from Illinois, known for dressing up as a clown for special events, used the name Patches or Pogo, and came to be called the Killer Clown. Gacy grew up in abusive household, but had a close relationship with his mother and sisters, despite the violence from their alcoholic father. As an adult, he managed KFC restaurants, which we'll get back to that, maintained a family man appearance, but he was living a double life. Beyond his upstate standing citizen personnel, Gacy had begun sexual assaulting boys, oftentimes paying them and giving them alcohol. Eventually, he was charged and convicted of assault of a teenage boy and served prison time. He argued his innocence throughout the whole process. He even paid a teenager to beat up the victim to try to prevent him from testifying in Gacy's trial. But Gacy still served 18 months of his 10-year sentence. Gacy's wife divorced him at the time, and his wife died during his incarceration. In infuriation that, in infuriating that Gacy violated his parole. So parole it was called, but the Ohio board that don't make no sense. It is infuriating, But Gacy violated his parole and was caught, but the Iowa Board of Parole never learned of the sexual assault charges, and records of previous convictions in Iowa were sealed after his parole ended, so they didn't know about that. Thanks to oversight, Gacy, with his mother's help, was able to purchase a home on Summerdale Avenue in Norwood Park Township, Illinois, an unoccupied part of Cook County where he lived until his final arrest. Gacy remained and started his own construction business. He also became active in community and fundraising efforts for various organizations, donning his clown costume and many events. But Gacy's actions behind the scenes was escalating. Not only is he assaulting boys and young men, he had also begun to kill. Gacy called the period of time between 1976 and 1978 his crushing years, when most of his murders were committed. During this time, he buried his victims in a crawl space underneath his house that was mainly beneath the dining room area and Gacy's bedroom towards the end. Guess he wanted to be closer to him while he slept and ate. Maybe, I'm just guessing. He began putting the victims into the Plains River, and so Robert, talk about one of his this victims. Robert Jerome Piest, Piest, was Gacy's final victim. Piest was a 15-year-old pharmacy employee whose murder would eventually lead detectives to search Gacy's home. And keep in mind also, the foul stench was really had people wondering what was going on in that house. And items found in the victim of from his victims, they later discovered the bodies in the crawl space of others parts of the property and in the Plains River. So they found all that, and so he was convicted. Gacy was convicted of 33 murders, but only 22 was identified and sentenced to death in 1980. While in prison, he began to paint. Many were pictures and clowns to be sold from prison. I don't know how much they worth. I looked around, but not really. I glanced. It'd be kind of interesting to have one of these paintings. But anyhow, there you go. Be gone with you, sir. Death row for Illinois. He, not too long after this, but for 10, 15 years after that, Illinois actually abolished the death penalty. So, what did he have for our last meal? Remember, I told you where he first a dozen deep fried shrimp, which if he was in Texas, he would not get that because they don't serve that in the kitchen. Well, actually, Texas does not have death row last meal no more. But here you go, a bucket of KFC's original recipe chicken. He just worked there. That was his final meal. French fries, a pound of strawberries, and a bottle of Diet Coke. So there's the KFC working at KFC, ended with KFC. So what was his final statement? And I love this. His final statement was, "Kiss my ass." Wow, went out with some greasy chicken and a kiss in the ass. Tell you what, now after all that chicken, I don't know if I want it. Yeah. But anyhow, there's the scumbag one. Scumbag number two, Harris. His name is Robert Alton Harris. And by the way, these are in different areas. I decided just not to be. I already said that since I'm in Illinois. But yeah, our second scumbag brings us to California, and I don't know if I mentioned Robert Allen Harris. So yeah, he had no alias. He's white. He was on death row, and received in March 14th, 1979. He was executed in San Quentin State Prison. So yeah, his offense was in 1978. But what did he do? Let's give a little short history about what this man did. Defendant Robert Allen Harris and brother co-defendant Daniel Marcus Harris abducted two teenage boys, kind of like Gacy. The defendant brutally murdered boys and stole their car, but they had no sex with them. I can't remember what. Only Gacy knows what happened, I guess. The investigation revealed that at 10:30 a.m. on July 5th, 1978, the defendant and co-defendant left their residence and drove to a fast food restaurant. Once at the fast food restaurant, the two men abducted two 16-year-old boys, John Mayeski, Mayeski, and Michael Baker. The defendant held the victim at gunpoint with a 9mm Luger pistol and forced them to drive until they reached an isolated area. Daniel Harris followed the defendants in a 1963 Ford. All about 11:45, the defendant shot and killed both victims in the presence of Daniel Harris, following to kill him. The Harris brothers drove through both automobiles through their residence. Later that day, they drove the stolen car's vehicle to a local bank, donning colored ski masks, and the two robbed the bank, getting $2,000 cash. The Harrises fled the bank at 12:30 and drove back to the residence of Robert Harris, parked the stolen vehicle in the garage. So about 1:05 p.m., San Diego police officers are acting on tip by a witness who had followed the suspect's vehicle to the residence. They apprehended Harris, Vehicles recovered. The police recovered 20 unfired rounds of 9mm ammunition from Robert Harris. Clothing and other effects linked to the robbery were found smuggled in, smoldering in the fireplace. So they're trying to burn it. So at 6:20 p.m. the evening, police questioned Daniel Harris, who gave a voluntary statement describing the details of the abduction and the killing of the victims by the defendant. Officers went to the scene of the murder and discovered the two murder victims. When initially interviewed by authorities, the defendant admitted robbing the bank but denied kidnapping the youth or being responsible for the murders. He later indicated to authorities that his brother Daniel had furnished the stolen automobile. Defendants continued to deny any involvement of the murders, indicating that he had been his brother. It has been his brother who has suggested the robbery while they were both in Porterville, California. So that it was his brother did it. San Diego District Attorney Office filed felony charges on auto theft, kidnapping, murder, and burglary against the defendant. The U.S. Attorney Office filed bank robbery charges against him as well. So, on March 6, 1979, Robert Allen Harris was convicted in San Diego County Superior Court of 2 counts of murder in the first degree with special circumstances and kidnapping. So that made him, of course, since he's on the show death penalty. So co-defendant Daniel Marcus Harris was only convicted of kidnapping and was sentenced to 6 years in state prison. He was discharged in 1983. So Robert Alton Harris was sentenced April 21st, 1992 in the gas chamber of San Quentin Prison, the first execution in California in 25 years. For his last meal, Harris requested and was given 2 large pizzas and a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, 22 pieces of KFC, and ice cream, just like, well, oh boy. So Harris was escorted into the gas chamber. The execution order was given at 6:07 a.m. and Harris pronounced dead at 6:21. The body was removed from the chamber at 7 a.m. and left the grounds at 8:15. The Harris execution was scheduled for 12:01 on the morning of April 22nd, but a series of 4 stays issued by individual federal judges delayed the execution until just about 6 a.m. It's in its order vacating the 4th stay of execution of U.S. Supreme Court started. No further stays for Robert Alton Harris. Execution shall be entered by the federal courts except upon orders of the court. So, yep, go ahead and execute him. According to Warden Daniel Vasquez Harris, his last words were, here you go. You can be a king or a street sweeper, but everybody dances with the Grim Reaper. So, there you go. But yeah, he has some priors I saw on this. So he served 3 years in Florida as a juvenile for petty larceny and auto theft escape, and that was in 75, and of course voluntary manslaughter in 78, where he was paroled. So one more scumbag we're talking about, and this is, I might go back to the guy I just mentioned. I might go back and do him, but on a full episode. But this individual I'm not going to do, because like John Wayne Gacy, there is nothing that I can say about this woman that not everybody in the whole world has mentioned already. But we're talking about Aileen Wuornos, who was executed in 2002. So yeah, as an abused child who later earned her living as a sex worker, Aileen Wuornos was found guilty of killing 6 men. So who was Aileen Wuornos? Serial killer Aileen Wuornos was sexually abused and thrown out of her home as a teenager. Having been involved in previous incidences with the law, she made a living as a sex worker on the Florida highways, and in 1989, which 89 is there. I thought I might have associated with this woman for a while, but more, I mean, they possibly could, because I was living on the beaches in 89 in Fort Lauderdale, and she ran more north, I believe. I looked it up, so, but you never know. Maybe I crossed paths with Aileen. I don't know. It's been so long ago. But yeah, she killed a man who had picked her up. She went on to kill at least 5 other men. Was eventually caught, convicted, and placed on death row. Her sanity was questioned. Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection in 2002. In addition addition to documentaries, books, and an opera, her story was depicted in 2000 film Monster. So, which was a pretty good movie. If you Charlie Stern played an amazing role as Aileen Wuornos. But yeah, but Hurley Wuornos was born on. Let me see if I said that already. I got lost on my notes. But yeah, her early years, Wuornos. Let's talk about. She was born on February 29th, 1956, in Rochester, Michigan. Growing up in a nearby Troy area to the south, the young Wuornoses experienced horrifying turmoil during her childhood. Her father killed himself while serving prison time for child molestation, while her mother abandoned Wuornos and her older brother Keith, leaving them to be raised by their grandparents. Yet Wuornos' grandmother was alleged to be an alcoholic, and her grandfather was a terrifying, violent, very abusive. So you can see how this is was her raising. This is how what she grew up on. So Wuornos would later state that she was sexually abused by her grandfather and had sexual relationships with her brother. She became pregnant by the early teens, and the infant boy was given up for adoption. So during her absence, Wuornos was also forced out of the home and to live in the woods. So, live in the woods. So, having previously been a ward of the state, Wuornos subsidized, I can't talk, on a vagabond existence as Adele hitchhiking and engaged in sex work to survive. She also was arrested during the mid 1970s for charges related to selling disorderly conduct and eventually settled in Florida where she met wealthy yachtsman Louis Fall. The two were married in 1976 but fell annually to the union shortly afterwards. They broke up, which a lot of people thinks if she would have stayed with him, we wouldn't even be talking about her right now. She would have been a fine, outstanding citizen. But upon Wuornos' arrest and another altercation a decade later, having been involved in numerous additional crimes, Wuornos met 24-year-old Tyra Moore in Dayton, Florida, and the two embarked into a romantic relationship. It will later be revealed that from 1989 until the fall of 1990, Wuornos had murdered at least 6 men along the Florida's highways, like I mentioned. In mid-December of '89, the body of Richard Mallory was found in a junkyard, and 5 more bodies were discovered throughout the months. And so, authorities were eventually able to track down Wuornos, who had used various aliases, and more from fingerprints and palm, and more, the other woman, from fingerprints and palm prints left in crashed vehicles and other missing men. Peter Sims, Wuornos was of the man. Let me start that over again, because all that made no sense. Authorities was eventually able to track down Wuornos, who had used various aliases and more from fingerprints and palm prints left in a crashed vehicle of another missing man, Peter Siems Himes. Wuornos was arrested at a bar at Port Orange, Florida, while police tracked down Moore in Pennsylvania to avoid prosecution. So Moore had left. So Moore made a deal in mid-January 1981. She was eliminated, from a phone conversation with Laura. She called Wuornos and got the confession from her. She would take the full and sole responsibility of the murders. Wuornos did. So a media frenzy assured the case due to the part of the lurid nature of the crimes. Of course, she was being a woman too. Wuornos insisted that she had been raped, assaulted by the men and that she had killed them. And she had killed them in self-defense, though not revealed in court. The guy was previously served a decade-long prison sex assault. So the guy that he killed. I'm talking too fast. Though not revealed in court, the guy who she said that she killed on self-defense had previously served a decade-long prison sentence for sexual assault. So she stated that her killing of the 5 other men had been in self-defense as well, though she would later recant that statement. So on January 27, 1992, a jury found Wuornos guilty of first-degree murder for the Mallory, Mallory case, and she received the death penalty. Over the ensuing months, Wuornos pleaded guilty to the murders of the 5 other men whose murders she was charged with and received a death sentence for each one of them. So that's 6 death sentences. So she's not going to escape this. One of them are going to stick. Outside from court, she later admitted the killing of CIEMS Times, whose body was never recovered. So she spent a decade on death row. Wuornos eventually opted to fire her appeals lawyers who were working for a stay of execution, but a court-appointed attorney was concerned that comments made by Wuornos that suggested that she was profoundly disconnected with reality in 2002. Florida Governor Jeb Bush, Bush himself, lifted a temporary stay of execution after three psychiatrists deemed that she was mentally competent and understood the death penalty and the reasons for her implications. So, Aileen Wuornos was executed on October 9th, 2002 by lethal injection. And what was her final meal? No KFC chicken this time. The only thing that she requested was a cup of coffee. Which, I don't know, if I was on death row, I don't think I would have an appetite. I think I would go with the coffee too. I would rather have a beer or a shot of Jack, but they don't do that. Well, whatever. And her last statement was crazy. This is why I did her. I tried to find someone else with some chicken, but I did. Her final statement was, I just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th. Like the movie, big mothership and all, I will be back. So there you go. There's my three scumbags of the Murder Monday meals. So if you like that, please rate and review anywhere you can. Share it with friends and subscribe to this. You also have this on YouTube. Now there's no pictures on YouTube or anything like that. It's just a picture, but you can go there. I'm trying to go live on YouTube eventually, but I need 1,000. I need your help. I need 1,000 subscribers. You can email me at truckstopmurder@gmail.com, or you could join my Facebook group, Truck Stop Murder. And with that being said, also, before I forget, you also do have a Patreon. Hopefully I got checked out, make sure it's up and running still. But it's a Truck Stop Murder and True Crime Podcast, or Truck Stop Murder. And my PayPal, if you want to throw me a couple bucks, maybe help me get some more equipment, or maybe separate the Truck Murder Monday meals and Truck Stop Murder, you could do that by truckstopmurder@gmail. Same thing with PayPal. All right, well, that's all I have to say on this Monday. And like I always end my shows off with, you can't fix stupid, but you can sure numb it with a 2x4. I'm out of here.
Huh?